Welcome and bienvenue and welcome back to Scrap Mechanic with Lyte. And before I start, just want to let you know the feedback on these videos has been awesome. I love hearing from you guys, and we've gotten a boatload of new subscribers. Thanks to, well, science! So let's do some more science. Here we've got quite a few Newton's cradles. If you don't know what a Newton's cradle is, it's basically a fun little physics toy that people put on their desk, and they click, clack, back and forth when they're bored. Yeah, pretty much it. What it helps to do is demonstrate some of the properties of collisions, whether elastic, inelastic, or otherwise. Mostly when dealing with a Newton's cradle, like the one you have on a desk, it's primarily, never completely, elastic collisions. Now, I have to check with my own brain every now and then, because I, like everybody else, sometimes get terms backwards. When you've got two terms that mean opposite things, and you don't have a particularly solid mental model for it, sometimes you get it backwards. But elastic collisions essentially keep as much kinetic energy going as possible. And they're exemplified in the Newton's cradle, because when you pull one side back and let it fly in, bam! It transfers through all of the intermediary objects, and then on the other side, this one comes out pretty much the same height as this one was raised. So the kinetic energy comes in, shabam, and comes out. Shabam, and bam, and back and forth and back and forth. Now that's not exactly everything that needs to be said about the whole process, but that's the gist of it. It conserves kinetic energy and it conserves momentum, and that's a very simplified version of what's going on, but it's essentially what should happen. Now, this is scrap mechanic. Physics isn't necessarily physics here, so it's good to check whether or not we get a good Newton's cradle effect from various Newton cradle type things. We could just take a sledgehammer and hit one end and have it bounce back in, but I'm going to use a controller just such that we've got some consistency. So we hook it up, and then we set it to an angle. I'm going to go overboard and put it about 150. So it gets a lot of acceleration before it hits. And then what we do, we just take out the controller. Whee! Kabonk. So what we got here was the first one went a little bit, the second one went a little more, third one went more than that, and the fourth one went even further still. So instead of transferring all the energy all the way through to the last one and letting it go, it kind of dispersed a bit through the middle. So let's look at that again and see if we can suss out what's going on. So we lift it on up, we move on over, and we remove it. Bonk. So we managed to get this guy over here. So let's see what angle that is. Let's say 30. Whoops, wrong way. Ooh, that was interesting. That was more what I was expecting it to do. Let's do that again. So we've got those there, and kapow! Ah, it's because these got stopped by that. It got a nice catapult effect, and the last one went flying. Okay. So bring it out. 30 degrees is probably a little higher than it got. 25, maybe? Yeah, that's about as high as it got. Yeah, 25 is about as high as it got. So let's hook it up back over here. Double check our measurements on that. Not 165, 150. There we go. Yeah. this one got to about 25 degrees. It'll be a little tough to measure any of the others. We might do another experiment to see exactly how it propagates through, but let's make sure that this isn't just a fluke, because I mean, this wheel, it's rubber. The normal Newton's cradles that you work with are metal, so we'll get to metal. But the big tires aren't the same as the little tires. They've got a different profile. They've got more surface impacting. They've got different traction-ish. It's more or less the same. But it might have different properties, so it's well worth testing. So I hook it up. Kabang. And then we set it to 150. We take a step back and watch the show. Kabonk. More or less the same result. This one mostly stopped, and then it propagates through to this one, which goes a bit, but all of them are kind of following along for the ride. I didn't mention, what I was describing initially is the truly elastic collision. A truly inelastic collision would essentially be this one glomming onto the rest and the whole bunch moving as a single new object. That is thoroughly inelastic. Grabs on, they all move together. What we're seeing is some combination of the two, because most collisions aren't simply one or the other. It's very difficult to get a purely elastic or purely inelastic collision. So here we are with a bit of both. The ones on the far end try to escape, but the ones in the middle try to follow along. Again, highly simplified, but you get the gist. So, rubber on rubber, we get that very middle of the road sort of collision. Let's see what we get with metal on metal. Bonk. So we're going to head up to 150 again, just for the sake of consistency. And then we let it drop. Bonk. Essentially the same. Okay, so maybe there's too much surface area. I mean, the Newton's cradles you usually see, they're nice spherical steel balls. That's not almost no connection, that's a lot of connection. So here is more or less the smallest impact surface I can make. Let's see if we get a different result. Kabonk. And 150 in. Whoa. That was uncalled for. Okay. So we're going to go shabam. Now this one had a slightly different result. This one, the first one bounced back, and this one didn't go as far forward. It didn't transfer the energy nearly as well as the others. Let's watch that again. Well, that's annoying. Let's see if they come loose from one another. And they don't. Let go. Well, that's interesting. I thought they fixed the clip glitches. Okay. So there we go. Now, it might have to do with the type of block we used, or it might have to do with the profile. It's hard to tell because we don't have other blocks that have that profile. But yeah, we got this one to bounce back off of it, which generally shouldn't happen. When this is coming in, the only time you should get movement back this way is if these were moving towards it. Shifting frame of reference sort of situation. So with these blocks, we get a rather odd reaction. Now, that gives me an idea that I hadn't thought of before this episode, but maybe non-constructive blocks have a weird reaction. So things that aren't building materials, per se, might impact differently than everything else. So let's just quickly swap these out. And then we'll see whether or not that makes a huge difference. Because it might. The physics for the different items might be implemented differently. So an impact with a non-construction material could work differently than with a standard construction material. Now this doesn't have the same profile, but we'll see what we get. And I put them on this end for balance, make sure everything's symmetrical and weighs the same and all that. But now let's try it again. See if we get a result like all of those, or if we get a result similar to the yellow block experiment. 150 again. Boing, yoing, yoing, yoing. And then we delete it. Oh, man. One of these got stuck together. That one's good. That one's good. That one's good. So, no. None of them got stuck together. And what happened? Okay. That's getting real annoying. That's getting really quite annoying with the weird clip glitches. Sorry about the dog. Not much I can do about the neighbors. Okay, so now it's okay. Let's go to 150. Okay, now let's double check that all of these are indeed separate. Okay, these are separate, but they're having a lot of trouble transferring their impacts. Yeah, this has a lot of trouble transferring the impact. So when we remove this, it's going to fall down and do nothing. That's remarkable. Was not expecting that. So a single one goes great. With two, it's okay. With a third, it's difficult. But with 5, you get almost no movement at all. Look at that. Whereas if we come over here with building materials, oh, come on now. It does something a little strange, but with heavy wheels, you get the normal result. With the light wheels, you get a fairly normal result. But with these non-constructive materials, the impacts are so dampened. So very dampened. So this was not the result I was looking for, but it's an interesting result. And before the dog goes any more crazy, I'm probably going to call it an episode, because I think this was enough science for this episode. Just a nice, quick little episode on what's going on with the basic collision physics. There are some complicated physics collision type glitches, but this is just basic collisions. You've got weird non-constructive materials. We've got normal constructive materials. And we've got wheels. One last quick thing, it's probably worth testing. What happens if we make this larger? Because that might be the source of the problem over there. that you've just got too much trying to collide, and it goes a little nuts. Whoops. And now we hit it. Ah, that's the problem. That when it tries to torque it, it just doesn't work. So it's not the constructive versus non-constructive, it's trying to go in a circle, and it just can't do it. That this part is trying to rotate as it's pushing, and this just doesn't allow it. So instead of pushing this out of the way and continually pushing, it just knocks it back. Now, I don't know if that's what it would do in reality. Is that really what it would do? I mean, send the force back at me? Don't know. Something worth investigating, though. But that's the result we get, that if you try to have a rotational type impact, and it can't rotate along the object it's hitting, it'll bounce right back. So, if you happen to know, for a fact, what this would do in reality, please leave a comment such that we all know. But if you're ever trying to implement some sort of rotational collider thing, this could get in the way. And if you're hoping to make a nice Newton's Cradle, well, it's not going to happen. Because this is what you get. Alas. Moral of the story, it's elastic, it's inelastic. Gotta live with what we got. So, I will see you in the next episode of Scrap Mechanic with Lyte. Oh, and by the way, I'm going to be gone for the next week, so it'll be at least a week until you see another episode. See ya!